Business Information Technology. Here we go. Our lesson today is about type layers in Photoshop. Pulling up my website here, it says number 3 text. Type layers are the same thing. I do have a handout for this. If you go to the help page, go to Business Information Technology and go to Photoshop number 3 type layers. It has information about this. One of the things I want you to make sure you catch here, I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. You're going to be making 3 different Photoshop documents today. And in each one of them, you're going to have some styled text. And you're going to use the type tool. You can warp it if you want to. I'll show you how. And you're going to have to use layer styles. I've got instructions on the handout for starting each new document. You're going to need 3 of them. You can fill the background if you want to. I've got instructions for how to create a type layer, how to format the type with the font and the size that you want, those kinds of things, and then how to warp the text. And if you scroll my handout on down, you'll also need to add effects to it, like shadows and glows, strokes, bevel, emboss, things like that we did in the previous lesson on layer styles. When you get each one of these done, you're going to have 3 different documents, so you'll want to call them text number 1, text number 2, text number 3, and you'll have to turn in all 3 of those on Schoology. Let me hop over here to, oh, and by the way, on Schoology, it's this Photoshop number 3 type layers. That's your link where you're going to turn it in. Let me hop over here to Photoshop and show you what these look like. This Colts text did not look all fancy like this to begin with. In fact, I could show you kind of what it looked like to begin with. It was just plain white, and then by the time I got done with it, it looked like that. So I changed it quite a bit. Here's a second example. I made some text that just, it's like it's a softball team, Rage Softball. And again, you see the glow around it and everything that I added to that. It did look like this, and then when I got done with the effects, it looked much different. This last one just says Bazinga. And again, it was just kind of plain white to begin with, and then after adding the effects, it looked quite a bit different. So what you're going to be doing is creating the text and getting it all formatted the way you want, and then style it up some. So I'm going to close these copies. I'm going to get these out of the way and show you how to do a couple of them. You have to do 3 of them for your assignment. All right, here we go. You're going to start off in Photoshop by clicking File and clicking New. And this is the same as we've been doing the last couple of days. The document type is, I'm just going to make it custom, and it's going to be 1000 pixels. Make sure it's pixels and not inches, by 800 pixels, and the resolution is going to be 72. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now you can color your background if you want to, just like we've been doing. You could click Edit and Fill and Color and choose a background color as you wish. Now I'm going to peek real quickly. All right, I'm going to start off by doing something Colts here. So I'll pick a blue color for my background, and I'll click OK and click OK. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is create some type. Now the type tool is in Photoshop is over here on the toolbar, and it looks like a capital letter T. Here's how you should use it. Take the type tool, click it, move out onto your image, click one time. Don't drag, just click one time, and then type what you want it to say. Now I'm going to turn on my caps lock because I want this to be all caps. So I'm going to go COLTS. When you're done typing, you can come up here just like we've done with when you're transforming. Remember, you always have to click that check mark. Same thing when you're typing. I'm going to come up here and just click the check mark, and that tells Photoshop, okay, I've typed what I want to type. Now, I'm not really done with it yet. The next thing I'm going to do, this is really small. On my blue background here, it's really small. So I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to go to Edit and Free Transform, or Control-T is a great keyboard shortcut. And I'm going to use Control-T here or Free Transform to make this text much bigger. When I'm done transforming, I come up here and I hit the check mark, and that tells Photoshop that I'm done. Now, what if I want to change the font or anything like this? If you'll come over here to, I'm pointing to it now, if you'll come over here to the layers where you see my blue background and you see a type layer. It has a capital T on it. It says Colts. I'm going to double click on the T and that selects the text. Now, I can change the font if I want to. I can go look through all of these fonts. They're up here on the option bar across the top, and I can go look through all of those fonts and take a look at whatever I feel like I want to use. Now, I'm pretty happy with this. And where did it go? I don't want that script. I'll just go with my old favorite. It's up here. I'm going to use Impact. So I'm going to scroll up and find Impact font, EFGHI. Here it is, Impact Regular. I'll just use that. I like that font. All right, so I'll use Impact. And I could also change the color of it if I want to. Right here's a box for color. I'm going to leave it this white color for right now because I have another idea that I'm going to show you in a minute. I'll go ahead and click the check mark. You know, I've got it sized up. I've changed the font. It's looking pretty much like I want. So I'll go ahead and click the check mark right up here to tell it, okay, I'm done. Now, the only thing really left on this one is to fancy it up a little bit. You know, it doesn't look bad the way it is right now, but I want to give it something special, like a shadow or a glow or a bevel or emboss or something like that. Well, that's like we did in our previous lesson. I'm going to come over here to the Effects button. I've got my type layer selected here. I'll go to the Effects button, and let's start playing around with it. I'll start with a drop shadow. And you can add anything you want. Now you'll notice I'll pull this over a little bit and part of the box will be outside of our movie window, but you can see that the drop shadow is beginning to show up behind the lettering there. And I can play around with all the settings like the distance or the size, and you know, we've done this with some pictures, so now we're doing it with text. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit, and I kind of like the way that shadow's starting to look. That's looking pretty good. Maybe I want to add like a stroke, which would be an outline around it, and maybe the outline ought to be a blue color. You want to go with a blue color? Let's go with a blue color around that. That's looking pretty good. I don't mind that too much. All right, so I've got, you know, the size and the color of the outline is looking pretty good. I kind of like what I got going there. Maybe I'll add a little bevel emboss to it, and I might just tweak around here with, I'm going to make it an inner bevel. And I could play with all of these things, the size, the smoothness, the depth of the bevel. You can play with all of those things to your heart's content. You can see what's happening back here on the text as I work my way along and I dress it up a little bit. So that's starting to look pretty cool. I like what I'm getting here. So I've got bevel, emboss, stroke, and drop shadow. And yeah, I'm not going to be picky about exactly what layer styles you use, but you got to style it up some. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. This one's done. So I would go File, and I would go Save As, and I would get to my network drive, and I would just call this text number 1. But remember, you have to do 3 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll call that text 1. And now I have to kind of start over again, right? Because I have to do 3 different ones of these. They have to be different, each one different. So I'm going to go File and New. And again, I'll just, you know, same things as we've done before. It's going to be a custom setup. So I'll make it 1,000 pixels, 800 pixels, 72 for the resolution, and click OK. Now I want to fill the background. And again, I'm going to peek real quick. That's what I thought. I'm going to do Edit, Fill, Color. And I'm going to fill this background with black. I'm pulling down here, and it might be outside your window a little bit. There we go. I'm going to pull down here to black and click OK and click OK. Now let's go with the Type tool. And I'll click once, and I'm going to type. I've got my caps lock on, Q-U-A-K-E-R. I'm going to press Enter, S-O-F-T-B-A-L-L. All right, so let's say you're a softball player. So this is going to say Quaker Softball. I'll come up here, and I'll click the check mark now that I'm done putting on the text. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut, Control-T, for free transform, and that allows me to take this text and make it much bigger. All right, I want it to be nice and big. I want to pretty much fill up this document. I want to have some fun with it here today. And click the check mark when I'm done. transforming. All right. Now, remember, if I want to change anything like the font, I could go over here to the type layer and double-click and drop this down, and then I could look through my fonts here and see if there's anything that I really want to use. Let's see if the one that I'm thinking about is here. And I am not seeing it. Alright, so again, I'm just going to go back to my old favorite here, my Impact Regular. I like Impact. So I'm going to, but you can use whatever font you want. And I'll go ahead and click the check mark here. Now I could change color if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that yet. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do here is go to my effects button, remember, and I'm going to try some different things this time. Maybe I'm going to do a gradient overlay. Now I got to pull this out of the way a little bit so you can see what's happening. I'm going to pick a different gradient. If I click here where it says gradient, I click here, I can pick whatever I want in here. Maybe a red and white kind of thing would be kind of fun. I'll go ahead and click OK with that. And you can also kind of play around with these settings here and change where how much red there is and how much white there is, and that kind of thing. All right, and you got a lot of gradients here that you can choose from. You can change the angle. You could play with all kinds of things. Now I think maybe I'll also add an inner shadow on this one and play a little bit with the choke and the size of the inner shadow. And we're getting there. We're getting some kind of cool stuff going on. Maybe a little noise around the edge of that. And I could throw on a bevel emboss again if I wanted to. It's just as a matter of what do you want it to look like. You can kind of play around with it and add on any of these things that you feel like you want to add. I'm going to take off that bevel emboss off of this one and maybe add, I'm going to turn off inner glow and do inner shadow. Alright, I like that pretty well. Now I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that, and you can see how I've got some red and white going on here. Now here's one last thing if you want to try this. You could double click on the type layer over here to get it selected, and then there's a button that appears right up here, and I'm pointing to it right now. It's for warping. Warping works like this. I could warp the text, I could click that button and give it a style like an arc. Now that's curved a little too much, so I'm going to bring the bend of it down some. I'm just adjusting the bend because I don't want it to bend quite that much, but you see what that's going to do to the text now. It's going to make it bend. Or I could do a bulge or a flag or a fish. And you don't have to use the warping options if you don't want to. I'm just showing you where they are, that little button right up there, and you can kind of warp the text a little bit if you want to add that to the way your text looks. So I'll go ahead and click on the check mark here, and now I've got a gradient going on, and I've got some colors in there, and I've got an inner shadow, and I've got a little warping going on. So again, it's going to be, I want you to do 3 different text items. I would save this one. I would go File, Save As, and call this Text 2. And to complete the assignment, I would have to do one more. But I'm not going to do one more in this demo. I think you're getting the idea. I would click File, click New, make another document, put some more text on there, fancy it up, use some layer styles, whatever layer styles you want to do, and fancy it up a little bit and go to work with that, and then save those. And again, you're going to turn them in on Schoology right here on Type Layers. All right, that's your link of the day. So that's going to be the end of this video, and it's time for you to kind of have at it and go to work and produce 3 different Photoshop documents that have text on them that has been kind of styled up and looks the way you want it to look. Hey, have fun with it. Go get them. I'll see you soon.